Everyone needs the help.
Right. Here's a question for you. What would you do? Watch as your child suffers from hundreds of epileptic seizures a day, or perform radical brain surgery that will hopefully stop the seizures, but also potentially paralyse your child? It's a decision these brave parents were forced to make.
Seeing Gary and his eyes dart and bounce around like ping pong balls in his head, it's like he's not there anymore. And that's what hurts about seeing an epileptic seizure.
This is Gary. He's just 3 years old. When he was just days old, he began to have regular seizures, sometimes up to 200 a day.
Yes, every time Gary started holding his breath, having a seizure, I would hold my breath too. He would lose consciousness and I would just pray for him to come back to us.
Their options were limited. One solution was a drastic surgery tackling epilepsy in children that has found that cutting out or disconnecting half of the brain can prove life-saving for chronic sufferers resistant to medication. Epilepsy is a brain disorder where random and uncontrolled electrical discharges result in seizures. A hemispherectomy involves removing or disconnecting one side of the brain. If the surgery is successful, the right side of the brain can slowly begin to take on the functions that were lost from the left and vice versa.
It works so well because children are very resilient after epilepsy surgery and they show a capacity to recover well. The brain can actually recover because of a phenomenon called plasticity, where the parts of the brain which were being affected by epilepsy are no longer being held back.
But the surgery itself can take up to 14 hours and poses some serious risks.
It's not a miracle cure. You know, these kids don't get half the brain removed and then everything's hunky-dory. Gary's been hospitalised 8 more times since his hemispherectomy. He's had 2 more brain surgeries.
There can be a risk of major bleeding, there can be an infection, they may not even survive the operation.
But for now at least, this could be the answer for so many parents living their worst nightmare.
Yes, it's such a big decision to make, but there is a sense of relief that they're going to have an operation that has got a very, very good chance of stopping the seizures completely.
Well, Carolyn Pinto is a member of the Hemispherectomy Foundation for parents after her 17-year-old daughter Freya underwent the procedure 6 years ago now. Carolyn joins us now. Carolyn, what was it like to have to make that decision?
Oh, look, it was an incredibly difficult decision to make, Carrie. But I guess Freya, like most children that ultimately require a hemispherectomy, was having catastrophic epilepsy, and her seizures were increasing and becoming incredibly resistant to any type of medication. So I think the decision was really one that was taken out of our hands by the time we went to surgery, because the decision was not really a decision at all, because the alternative was so much worse for Freya.
Must have been just the most galling experience, Carolyn. And then you go ahead with the surgery. What impact has that had on Freya's life?
Well, Freya's seizure-free. She was having 200 seizures a day while she was in hospital prior to surgery. But at the same time, a hemispherectomy imposes significant physical and functional disabilities on the child. For all children that have a hemispherectomy, they'll have some paralysis on the opposite side of their body to whatever hemisphere is removed or disconnected. So for Freya, she has no functional use of her left arm or hand. She has lost a field of vision, so she has no peripheral vision on her left, and she's lost a field of vision in the centre of her eyesight as well. She had a right hemispherectomy, so she's not good with spatial skills. She has more difficulty navigating herself in a crowd, for example. And similarly, children that have their left hemisphere removed or disconnected will often have trouble with reading, comprehension, verbal skills.
Do you feel, though, that Freya is glad that she has this chance now without the seizures to kind of navigate life?
Oh, absolutely, Carrie. One of the first things that she said to me after her surgery was that she said at the time, I don't care about the loss of my hand. I'm just so pleased that the seizures have stopped. And she was only a little girl. She was 11 years old when she was able to articulate that. So Freya now does all the things that, you know, mostly typical teenage girls do. She's able to shop and go out with friends. There was absolutely no possibility of her doing any of those things before the surgery.
Well, it sounds like you guys have been on a big journey as a family and you're now helping many other families as well. So good on you guys. And yeah, thanks so much for sharing your story with us tonight.
Thank you. Thanks, Karen.
All right, we're going to a break. We'll be back soon. Coming up, Carrie's got...